Katie, and I am here with my great aunt. Can you introduce yourself?
Connie Anson Nolan,
And how old are you?
72.
Alrighty, now we're going to get started with our questions. First question I have for you is what kind of physical challenges have you had while you have gotten older in life?
Movement.
Can you elaborate?
Well, I find in my life that I like to stay up later because I feel good. And in the morning when I wake up, it takes me maybe a half an hour to adjust to my aches and pains here and there. But once I get my shower and get moving, I feel better.
Okay. And do you use anything to cope with your pain or
No.
nothing? Okay. Another question I have is what successes or satisfaction have occurred in your career?
Well, I think the realization that we grow older, because I did domestic housework for seven ladies in the village that I worked for, because I worked 5 days a week, and with each of these ladies I would go, and they ranged from different ages. Some were young and had children, and my oldest lady was 97. And I find that they were wealthier than I was at the time, and I find that it was interesting to see the difference in lives. So it helped me to accept my part of my life at that time in the 1980s.
Okay. Another question that I have is what things have you done to help your children become responsible, happy adults?
Well, as my mother told me, my job as a parent is to take care of my children and my home and to teach them about God. And that's what I kept my pattern of life along with work on. And as for them growing up, I believe that they're reasonably happy, but I don't believe anyone can be happy every minute. And if they make choices that bring them unhappiness, then they have to tender to it, because I can't change anyone except me, myself. But I hope they're reasonably happy.
Good answer. How long have you been married, and how have you kept your marriage alive through the years?
Well, we've been married 55 years. My husband was 17 and I was 17. He soon turned 18 when we married. He could have possibly have been 18 when I think of it, because we were married in 1961. Life was different then. We both came from the country. And now, when I married my husband, my mother told me this: you're old enough to get married. I know you can take care of a home and children, because I come from a large family. And with helping my mother at 17, my mother said that I knew how to do this. And to remember to respect my husband and to keep him clean, because sometimes men don't like to change their clothes as often as their wives prefer them to. But at any rate, I think mostly God, the love of God and prayer that helps you to be patient during the times, because marriage over 55 years is a big change from being 17 and 18, being in the military, having 2 children, the change as you grow older in those years. And people are not the same at when they're 17, when they marry, as they are at 30 or 50. And now I'm 72 and my husband's 74. So life is just got its constant little changes that you learn to go with. But you love one another, but it's not the same as magazine loves or stories on television or in the movies. It's a peaceful love that sits together in the evening and you know to make the coffee in the morning. That's what I call it. But most of all, God gives you grace to sometimes when you get a little hurt, you can get over it if you just don't act like you don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. How did you have to adjust to your aging parents?
Well, I really didn't know. I honestly believe this when I look back on my life. I never thought of my parents aging at the time they were. And when I talked to my mother a few days before our whole lives changed, she asked me to come and stay with my father. So it surprised me, but I did. Or I told her I would. And 2 days later, she had a major health catastrophe. And for 3 years and 5 months, she could not be left alone. My father had advanced into dementia, the doctor called it, where he could not accept what was happening to my mother. And so they were not allowed to live alone. My husband had retired from work, and we were by ourselves. So I went to stay with my mother and in her home because she wouldn't leave it, and my father. And my husband carried on in the home that we had and would come and visit us. Sometimes I would take my mother to visit my home to clean it up after my husband, because I was happy that he allowed me to go and help my mother so she could live in her home instead of go to the nursing home, because she lives 52 miles from where I do, and it was too far to go every day. And so I adjusted to that mainly because I loved her, and I knew all the years in the 1940s, late 1940s, I can remember her scrubbing clothes with a washboard and a big tub, and she always kept us clean. So to me, it was all I could do for her was to give back that love of caring enough to where you're willing to set aside your own life and help them.
Alrighty. And how do you stay physically healthy, and have you had to adjust to any limitations?
Mainly, the doctor I go to, when I tell him if I have a little problem, he'll look into it and then he'll tell me it's part of aging, which I appreciate because I don't take medication, and I've learned to, you can't worry about much in life. If you do, you're going to make yourself ill. And my limitations are that I know I can't go as much as I used to, because if I do, it makes me too tired and stressed. And then I could sleep for 12 hours. Other than that, I usually sleep maybe 8 hours with getting up to go to the bathroom. So yes, life is changing a little.
Okay. And how have you planned for the future finances to have adequate support?
Well, my husband and mainly and I, we do have some properties which we thought would always be there. But the thing is, and my husband says that it's only fair if we use them instead of leave them to children that are older. Our children are 54 and 53. They will be this year in the fall. That they have what they need. So if we need them, we will use them. But I sometimes wonder, will there be people to buy property? And you certainly can't use a piece of property for something, because it's a piece of land with trees and a stream and stuff, or a house on it. So I do see that is a little different, but we have worked and retired and have an income.
Okay. Have you ever had to learn and revise your work roles?
Yes, I think my work roles over life was first to be a faithful, obedient daughter, to help my mother with her family, and then I became a wife, and then a mother, and my children grew, and my job was to be um, loving, respectful mother-in-law. And then I became a grandmother, and my job then was to be a caring grandmother that loved and helped and shared. And now I'm a great grandmother of 8 children, and I still care, remember birthdays, remember kisses and hugs, and prayers especially for them. So my role has changed, and it included taking care of my mom and dad. And that was hard. That was the hardest part of my life, watching my parents grow older and more unable to care for themselves. And finally, I just realized with the Lord, I love nature, and in nature, I see flowers that come on with a bud, and then they bloom and are open and beautiful, and then they fade and start to wilt. So I realized that life, even for us, is like that. So that helped me a lot to understand that we're just on a journey through this world.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. What was the Great Depression like, and how much do you remember of it?
Well, the Great Depression, I was not born in. I was born in World War II in 1944. But where we lived in the state of New York, which is upstate New York, the highest you can go, lived at the end of the road, no automobile. The school bus didn't come for us in the winter because there was no plows that would go down the hill and clear the road. And we couldn't walk because we were too small. It would have been at least a half a mile to walk through the deep snow. So I remember that there were times you ate oatmeal if there was nothing else, but it always had milk because we had a cow. And so, yes, I can't tell you all the secrets of life, but yes, we learned to be without, and we existed, and we've learned to be with, and still exist. So, I think life changes. It just changes, and you have to accept the part that you're in.
Alrighty. And lastly, what was the happiest time of your life?
I think the happiest time in my life has been in several things. First of all, my faith. Without it, I would not have anything. And because I think of that, what does anything matter without faith? Because there's more than just this world. The other happy times in my life was being a daughter and picking flowers for my mother and aunt for Mother's Day one time. And then being a wife, that was very happy. And then being a mother, when I saw my little babies, my son and my daughter, when they were brand new, those were happy times. And even my grandbabies were happy times, and my children's weddings. There is no one happy time, unless it would be the day that I knew how much God loved me. That was very happy for me, and it still is.
Well, my name is Katie, and this is my great aunt, Aunt Connie, and thank you for watching.